Hey everybody, Stuart here. I hope you're all well. If you've been to the channel before, you know I love soul and R&B, and I teach a lot of that style on here as well. It's easy to forget that Jimi Hendrix actually started out in the world of soul and R&B. He played for Little Richard, the Isley Brothers, and many more. So his actual rhythm style is quite different to most rock guitar players. He uses some pretty dense chords, some really big, lush chords as well. But one of the things about that is that they can be hard to play, and they can almost act as these roadblocks when it comes to learning his repertoire. So you basically need to study his approach to chords on its own. And that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to look at some of his most common chord ideas and some of his classic riffs and get a sense of how he thought and how he played these chords. So when you're learning his pieces, there's no more mystery. Let's get started. Okay, we're going to start off with The Wind Cries Mary. We're going to take a look at the intro riff Jimi plays. There are two really cool things he's doing here. It's originally played in F, but I've dropped it a semitone down to E because I'm going to show you something cool you can do with the chords after this. Here's the riff. So the first thing Jimi does is play a simple ascending power chord riff. We're going to play D, E flat, E. But he does something that's subtle but makes a huge difference to the chord. Instead of just playing the chord on the A, D, and G strings, these are power chords, root, fifth, root. He puts the fifth of the chord in the bass as well on the low E string. So all of a sudden you get these really huge sounding power chords. Take that low note away and you really hear it. So that's the first simple but cool thing he does. Next, we're going to move on to the all-important major triad with the third in the bass. The first inversion triad. So the next chord is a huge part of Jimi's style. We get this. And it's all about this first inversion triad up here. We're landing on the E triad here. Third in the bass, fifth in the middle, root on top. So we're going D, E flat, up to an E. But this is at the heart of a lot of what he does because you can embellish that chord and take it from being a straight major chord to something far more interesting. So even just playing those embellishments on the D and the G strings, frets 9 to 11, starts to give the chord a load of color. But if you see that as belonging to this E major pentatonic shape, the embellishments make a lot more sense. So the really cool thing about that chord is you can easily add those extra notes to it, just with the first and third finger if you want. But you can also start to move between chord progressions with the embellishments and with a really smooth change. Check this out. I'm going to move from a simple E to a D to an A. But I'm going to use these first inversion triads, which is going to give it a totally different sound. So one of the first things to notice there is that you get consistency between the chords. We can use the same shape and we can use similar embellishments on each chord, just moving down the frets from the E to the D, down to the A. If we want, we can keep that low open E string in there as well. So let's break that down a bit more. We're going to start off by sliding into the E chord, then hammer on 9 to 11 on the D string with the G underneath it, and then we hammer on back into the chord, Then down to the D, first inversion D major triad, third in the bass, but we can add the low E in the bass as well. Again, there's the hammer on, this time from 7 to 9 on the A string. Or you can slide. Down to the open A. Again, there's that slide into the third of the chord. And the embellishments on the A strings and the D strings. And it's very similar to the way Steve Cropper plays the whole stacks soul thing. Again, you can really hear the soul influence in Jimi's style with those first inversion triads. If you're enjoying this free lesson, come and check out my Patreon. There's tons more lessons like this covering everything from soul and blues to funk, Americana, fingerstyle and more. I'm actually working on a Jimi Hendrix mini course at the moment, which will be live there soon. That one's going to really look at his double stop playing and more embellishments on longer chord sequences. So come and check it out. The link is in the description below. Another really common feature of Jimi's playing is big, beautiful chords like in the intro to Angel. Check these two out. So Angel is all about getting right onto the fingertips, keeping the open strings ringing, and getting a smooth movement between the two chords. Let's take a look at the first chord. It's a gorgeous E major 9. So we have the root as the low E, the major 7 is the D sharp down on the A string, the major 3rd is the G sharp here on the D string, and then we get 5th, 9th root. So the important thing there is to stay right on the fingertips, particularly that 4th finger, because we don't want to lose the high E string. Bend the joints of the fingers, take the thumb down the back of the neck. Just make sure everything's really clean, but don't use too much pressure for this chord. And then we just move the whole shape down a tone or 2 frets. You can either look at that as being an F sharp minor 7 with the E in the bass, the flat 7th in the bass, or an A major 6 with an E in the bass. But most importantly, it's just the same shape, 2 frets down. Again, fingertips, wrist a little bit bent, not too much, thumb on the back of the neck, and keep that high E string ringing. Now that is a big chord, so make sure you practice making that shape, getting all 4 fingers on simultaneously. Try and avoid doing this kind of thing, sort of wrapping the fingers on, because you'll never get there in time and you'll always lose notes within the chord as well. Jimi's use of bars and bar chords is one of the hardest things to get to grips with in his playing, quite literally. It can really cause you a problem, and not least because he often plays embellishments at the top of the bar chords, that's on the B and E strings, or in the middle of the bar chord, and Little Wing is a great example of this. Let's take a look at the first chord we're going to study. So he starts with a simple B minor chord, but he's playing embellishments on the E string. And you can also play the embellishment at the 10th fret of the B string as well. It's a little bit harder to do. So we're just going to stick with that melody on the first string. So you've got to really make sure you keep the index finger bar down all the way through. The third finger, you can keep it on the 9th fret of the D string as well. And you get this B minor 9. If you are struggling to keep the bar in place, you can move it down the strings as well. But really with his style, that bar is across 6 strings most of the time. Even more challenging are the embellishments he does in the middle of the bar chords on the D and the G strings. And he does this on the A minor chord in Little Wing like this. So there the melody is on the D string. We've got to stretch up from the 7th fret of the D string up to the 9th fret, keeping the bar in place and trying to catch the G string as well. So again, really trying to keep that bar in place. The first 2 chords in Little Wing are an E minor to a G major. Most people will play E minor, G major. But of course, Jimmy does something quite different. Here's what he plays on the verse. One of his most common embellishments is a trill. It's just a fast hammer-on, pull-off routine, normally done on open strings and open chords like this. And all I'm doing there is the fast hammer-on pull-off on the 2nd fret of the D string to the open string. But what's more interesting is what he plays on the G. So we're not going to get this. We get one of his thumb over the top chords. It's a really gorgeous G add 9. So that's a G on the bass, the root. It's played with the thumb. The G octave is played on the 5th fret of the D string with the 4th finger. The 9th, or the suspended 2nd, is the A, fret 2 of the G string. And then finally, the 5th D is the 3rd fret of the B string. And remember, with Jimmy's playing, the embellishments are often on the inside of the chord, typically the D and G strings, and so he uses the G string just to play a simple melody. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed that one. It's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Jimmy's playing, but getting to grips with his chords can really help you learn his repertoire a lot more quickly. For more lessons, remember, you can join me on Patreon, or you can take private lessons with me now as well, or just leave questions and comments in the section below, and I'll do my best to answer. Take care, and I'll see you soon.